Thought I hit the unmute button, but I had not. So try that again. Welcome back, everybody, to Bread Theory. Tonight we are going to be doing more permaculture with Transformative Adventures, Mike Hoag's permaculture endeavor. And tonight the topic of discussion is called, I'm having trouble with my stupid mic here. Oh, I think it's this one that's loose. There we go. Tonight's topic is on financial permaculture. So applying it to personal finances, applying it to business endeavors, and all kinds of cool stuff. Wow, how did this get so loose? Sorry, my boom came loose just at the most inopportune time. But we will be joining the class just as soon as I can pull it up. So we're going to start by sharing the screen. And just as soon as I can get into the class, we will go forward with it. I'm going to hide that just for now so it doesn't look quite so weird and Inception-like. And we will go ahead and find the link to the class and get started. It's been a really great series working with Mike here. He's led to quite a bit of good discussions on this channel. And it's been really great to get that sneak peek into what is clearly a really great value for the money permaculture design course. So here's the meeting. Bring it up right now, and we'll get into it. As always, this is a live class that we'll be looking in on. Excuse me. So if you have any questions for Mike, feel free to post them in the chat, and I will relay them to Mike or try to answer them as best I can myself. So it should be let in any second now. Classes are already in progress. Been going about 15 minutes or so now. I guess up to about 18 minutes. But we'll still get a lot of good value out of it, for sure. This is doesn't. I don't think I have a separate link for tonight. It should be the one that I've always used. All right, we're gonna leave the meeting. We'll try and relaunch that. I don't know what's happening. Well, in the meantime, I guess I'm here to answer any questions you may have about permaculture in general or about starting a permaculture business. I have done landscaping for myself, and I also do it in the summertime. So I try to apply permaculture principles in both of those cases. So I have a bit of experience. I'm not sure why we're not getting into the meeting. Do I have a bad connection here? Oh, here we are. Okay. Here we go. All right. So here we are.
The idea that Danella Meadows got to was that we have there are weak leverage points for changing systems and strong leverage points for changing systems that really have a big impact. And the thing is that most of the time we focus on the ones that are relatively weak ideas, leverage points, and then we leave the ones that are strong leverage points at home. So the basic idea here is that we can look at four broad categories of these types of leverage points. On the bottom left, these are really easy to figure out how to reach. Like if you imagine that's a crowbar up there, you see that it's really easy to reach it right there. So we can figure out how to change that easily. but it doesn't give us much leverage at all. And these have to do with tracking and changing the numbers and money, so, or the numbers and resources. So for example, if your goal is to get healthy, you might try to track your calories or your weight and try to make your weight go down. Now, probably most of you know that dieting that way, we call it a brute force method, because usually these involve a lot of stress and conflict. You know, if you're trying to lose weight, you're thinking about that cupcake over there and you want to eat the cupcake, and you have a conflict over whether or not to eat that cupcake. So, and it tends to not be very effective, especially if we leave stronger leverage points in place, things like behavior change, and then as we move up from that, systems change, and finally, deep changes are changing our goals, our mindsets, and our paradigms. So these are really powerful leverage points. So to talk about this, to just give one example for money, and as we talk here, if you can think of more examples of these, you can feel free to add them in the chat. So for brute force, one example when it comes to money is that we can think of finding a higher paying job, right? If you look at your money and you realize you don't have enough of it to pay your bills, then you're tracking, right, your income and your expenditures, and then you try to change that situation. Either try to spend less money or try to get a higher paying job. Of course, that can be a hard thing to do, and it doesn't necessarily make a big change. So moving up from there would be behavior change. For example, instead of trying to just find a job and being focused on a job mindset, we might try to develop a whole career. Or we could try to understand, instead of just trying to spend less, we could try to understand our emotional spending and our behavior for spending. Or we could just ditch our credit cards. Again, if you can think of more behavior changes that would affect our money, then you can throw them in the chat. Next up, even more powerful, we can think about making system changes to our finances. For example, instead of looking for a career to get money in, we can start to seek investments, because these are investing in systems that will grow money for us instead of us having to make it with our directly, you know. And we'll talk about ways to do this that are ethical, because a lot of times they're not. Or you could automate your payments. So you create a system to make your payments so you're not getting late fees anymore and stuff like that. You could stop avoidant behavior. For some of us, money is so stressful, and thinking about it is so stressful that we don't even want to think about it. So we don't pay any attention, and the money just flows away from us because we don't want to look at it. So creating systems where we see the money and see the changes can be a big system change. And that can lead to deep change. For example, escape the whole rat race mentality. Kick the consumer addiction. You know, a lot of us don't have enough money because we're addicted to buying stuff that we don't need with money we don't have, as they say. And so we can think in investments again. We can think in multiple forms of capital, set life goals, not money goals, know what enough means. These are the sorts of things that we're going to be talking about a lot tonight. So, you know, these are big, those are some of the leverage points we'll talk about. This slide shows some of, it's a little messed up, so I'll try to fix that. But this slide shows the more detailed view of Donella Meadows' leverage points for system change. For anyone who hasn't seen these before and you're interested in looking at those, you can take a look at that. By the way, I'll make sure that you have a copy of this slideshow too. Oh, Affluenza is a great book. I love that one too. I think we have a group connection to Affluenza too. Let's see if I'm sure that'll come up. So here's something else that we want to make a point of, though. So even though the things on the top are strong leverage points, we can't let the search for deep change stand in the way of a little brute force. Because sometimes we need those lower leverage points in order to make things work. For example, earlier I was saying that cutting calories or counting your calories or counting macros, if you're still doing emotional eating and you have a sedentary lifestyle and you hate exercise, then that's not going to be an effective way to get in better shape, right? Or improve your health. But if we've already made deep changes, like finding things that are physically active, that connect us with nature, that we want to be doing on a daily basis, so we're not sedentary, and starting to really value the feeling of being in a healthy, vibrant body, and systems changes like changing the time when you exercise. I guess that's a behavior issue. Because once we've made big changes, then cutting calories or watching our calories or watching our macros can do a lot to help us meet our specific goals. So it's the same for us tonight. We do need to be able to focus on these small, the lower leverage points too. And sometimes they're low-hanging fruit as well, because they're easily accessible. They're easy things that we can change. So with that said, Laura or anyone else, do you have anything you want to add to this?
I wouldn't necessarily add anything, but I would love to encourage a little bit of conversation around this if participants are interested. What are the reactions to this chart, this way of thinking? Like Mike said, we've kind of centered this as the focal point of our overall goal for the next 4 sessions together, is to really build this out and help you have the foundation to work towards this.
Yeah, and while anyone else is thinking about talking, that's very exciting to me, because it shows that what we're going to be really talking about, I think, are high leverage point items for helping people change the way they view money and finances. I think Noah unmuted if he has something to add.
I just wanted to state that many people in the so-called alternative movements have negative attitudes to money and finance and financial wealth, which I am often guilty of, but is not a very productive, abundant attitude. And while the larger systems have trillions of dollars floating around the world looking for investments, we're focused on living simply. And I stated something to another elder in our movement, Graham Bell, and he says, "Okay, if you don't like money, give me some. I'll find something to do with it." So I'm going to start changing my approach from today forward.
Isn't that a great point? You know, we're a community of people who's more serious about eating weeds than talking about money. And which one is, potentially more important for having a high impact on society too? Noah's absolutely right. All the wrong people have all the money. And we as a community need to get better about thinking radically, thinking like community organizers. In a couple of days, we're going to talk about strategies, high leverage strategies for societal change. And when it comes to those, it's going to be the same sort of thing. It's going to be thinking about our social capital and political capital. And that means building durable power. And that means building durable power within the community that wants to regenerate the earth instead of destroy everything and turn it into money all the time. You folks are the people that I want to see grow in actual wealth and access to resources, and to do that same work within your communities.
And Joe, I see you dropped a comment in the chat, and I don't want to put you on the spot to expand on it, but based on your comment, I would really love at the end of the 4th session, if you're willing to return to this comment, to see if we've shifted that at all, because I think our whole goal is to make you feel like you can do it, that you have the ability. So yeah, I think that's, like we said, that's our whole point. And maybe you don't want to say anything right now. I don't want to put you on the spot, but we'd love to. I think Mike would be interested too, to circle back to this comment and see how you feel after the 4 sessions and the information we present.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that, and that's great. And I hope that we will give you a different way of thinking about a lot of this. And if I could point out one thing to everyone, just because it's so interesting. Joe's comment was that he doesn't feel like a financially sound life in his region, in his area, with his life goals and all that is achievable. And then look at the next comment, is that it was about people only want to pay. I just get this correct, but they only want to pay $15 an hour, for example, something like that. And I just want to point out that the thinking goes right to brute force, right? Thinking about directly changing our resources, tracking how many resources we have, and thinking about that as a limiting factor. So the first thought is, I can't have a financially resilient life, and then immediately thinking to the number of the dollar sign, the number into that system, tracking the numbers instead of looking at higher leverage points. So it's just interesting that right away our thinking goes straight to that brute force, which is just exactly what Donella Meadows taught. Another comment here from Melanie: I feel like I get it philosophically and struggle sometimes with understanding how to actually put it into practice in the world of form and our present day conditions and societal configurations. So yeah, I see a lot of that, and I hope that by the time we're done with this, we'll have some specific tools that will make that all feel better. So I'm going to kind of continue on with our talk here. And as we talk tonight, with this background of systems change and leverage points, we're going to be talking about one specific path or tool that for arranging our thinking. And this is 7 keys to transformation or transformative livelihoods. And the reason why we choose the thistle is the ultimate resilient pioneer species. It's so resilient, it can handle, people trying to weed it out in the desert, and it can handle anything and keep coming back. By the way, this is a beautiful edible globe cardoon cultivated for the size of the globes in the Lily House Garden in Michigan. And so it's not really a thistle. It looks like a big thistle. So thistle. And we can even use a hand mnemonic for this if you want to put up your hand or think about this in terms of your hand as a way of memorizing these. The first thing that we have is the transition which is our wrist, the transition from our arm to our hand. So our first T is for transition, to think of the old economy and the new economy. So again, just to think about this, a lot of us tend to focus on one or the other. And what we're going to talk about over the next few days is a strategy that is both old economy and new economy. And we really need to be thinking that way at the same time. So another part of that is that maybe we won't have a perfect new economy approach right off the bat. It's something that we're going to have to develop and give ourselves permission to move in the right direction, even if it's not always perfect. The next thing up is our whole hand. And that is for the H in Thistle, which is holistic. We have to be thinking holistically, focusing on whole life design instead of just focusing on something like making money. The next thing that we have is our thumb, and that we can use to grip and hand people money in our community. And that is the I in Thistle, which stands for invest. We're going to talk a lot about investing in transformative assets. So a lot of you may have thought about income before and permaculture for incomes, and that's something that we hear a lot in the community, is doing things to make money, making side hustles, making more dollars per hour. But we're going to switch our whole strategy more towards the idea of investing, and investing in what we're going to call transformative assets, an important term for tonight. The next thing that we have is the first finger, which comes on the top of a stack of fingers. And this stands for stacking incomes, talents, and markets. When we get into our class tomorrow, we're going to talk about how to design livelihoods that stack our income streams, stack our talents, and stack markets together. So we're not just thinking in a very simplified way. The next thing here is the T. It's right in the middle of a bunch of fingers because it's part of a team, and the T stands for team up, be a community organizer. To have a resilient, transformative career these days, you have to think like a community organizer. The next is actually kind of makes an L here, so we can call that L for luck. We're going to talk in a few days about designing to be lucky, and that's actually a thing. It sounds kind of like woo, but there's actually an interesting set of science about it, and we're going to talk about that. And finally, the last finger is enough. And know what that means for you. This is our overall strategy that we're going to be talking about over the next few days, and especially tonight. Starting with the idea of transition, keeping one foot in the old economy and one foot in the new economy. So again, that's going to frame a lot of our discussions too. Let's see, and now we're on to Lauren. You want to take over?
Yeah, let's do the next couple of slides. So just like we use permaculture principles to design in our landscapes, we can also use them to design for wealth. So you'll see throughout, especially the next 3 sessions that we have together, some of the 12 homegrown permaculture principles scattered throughout here and applied to personal finance. And I want to make a nod to what Noah said, and I think a lot of people in permaculture think about, that we have this negative mindset around money. We come from the activist community, the environmental spaces. And so if for anyone that's still not ready to embrace individual wealth, I encourage you to think about it as, building wealth for your community. Because all of what Mike and I are going to share with you can be applied to building wealth at the community level. And in fact, that is the ultimate goal, is, to help get you financially resilient first, and to a place of enough so that you can go out and redistribute the surplus and be building wealth, greater wealth in your community. And it's not about permaculture millionaires or billionaires. Again, it's that place of enough by designing with these principles. And Mike started us off by showing some of what's on this slide in a different way, but just to reiterate again that this conversation about finance and economics is there in the permaculture flower. We see it's one of the 7 petals. We see in the 3 core principles or ethics of permaculture, we've got earth care, people care, and fair share, which is, largely about economics. And permaculture presumes abundance, and it's not just a presumption of abundance in our landscapes. It's in all of the petals of that flower and all aspects of our lives. So just to underscore that again.
And this is a good time to point out, if there are folks on the call or joining us tonight who are not familiar with permaculture, as Laura said, it's as we've been talking about, it's really an overall sort of strategy you can dig deep into, and it's really kind of a satisfying adventure to look after. And I'd like to recommend the two sites for looking at, and I'll probably get them backwards. I often goof these up. I think you want the principles and ethics we're looking at tonight on this slide are found on permacultureprinciples.com. Now, I think you can look there at permacultureprinciples.com, and you'll find these homegrown principles and ethics. So if anyone feels like exploring that in more depth, that's a great place to look. And for tonight, in the Transformative Adventures community, we do have kind of a simplified version of these, that if you would like to just kind of keep these in mind, we kind of tend to focus on one ethic that we call the ethic of transformative action, which is just simply to seek happiness skillfully. That means understanding that our happiness can't come at the expense of our world, because then how can you be happy in a trashed world? And it can't come at the expense of our families or our communities, because then we have to live amongst poverty. We have to live amongst misery if we've destroyed our own communities to seek our own happiness. So seeking happiness skillfully means that we all that we seek happiness in ways that actually improve the earth and our communities. And we could also have a nice little principle that kind of summarizes a lot of things. It's something that I think Robin already brought up in the chat. And this principle could just be the principle for transformative action. And we could say that this is what we do is we invest in growing connections with nature and community. So almost everything, no, literally everything that we're going to be talking about in this little mini course on money and on social permaculture is all going to be about investing our time, our energy, and resources in growing connections with nature and community.
Just a nod here, in some circles, I've heard, in permaculture circles, I've heard people referring to that a new fourth ethic, that ethic of transition. So Mike's already alluded to the old and new economy, and recognizing that we can't, the new economy doesn't completely exist already for us to get into. So we have to, honor this ethic of transition as well. And then here, so as I mentioned, one of the 12 homegrown principles is design from patterns to details. And so if we're looking at personal finance and thinking about it from that perspective, one way we can think of this is by looking at and figuring out our long-term, short and long-term life and financial goals.
And so that brings us back to this question that we started at the very beginning of the night talking about just a little bit, but let's come back to it again. And the idea of what is money. Someone already said it feels like a chain, right? It does, because we're all required to use it in order to meet our basic needs in this crazy world we've created. So, Noah gave another answer that I really liked. And the answer he gave is that it's a form of energy. It's a way, it's a measurement, or really it is a symbol of our life energy. When you go to work every day, or whenever you go to work, if you go to work, then you are exchanging your time, your life energy for this green paper that we call money, or numbers in a computer screen these days. And so when you use that money to buy anything, you are spending your life energy. For a lot of people, this is a really profound understanding that money allows us to like objectify our life, our very life energy, our time, our limited precious time that we have here on this earth, and think about it as an abstraction so that we can end up buying dumb stuff that we don't actually need, right? But if we actually thought that this is my life energy that I'm spending on an Avon perfume bottle shaped like a Volkswagen. Actually, I found this in a garage. I did not buy it, but somebody did. And if we thought about, that this cost someone 3 hours of their time, of their life here on this planet for this thing, I know because the price tag's still on it, then would we have decided to make that choice? So it's a really interesting thought. Everything that we talk about tonight, we'll be talking about this recognition that our money is our life energy. And this brings us to another question for tonight, which is, what is a wealthy life? And we had planned on doing this as a little breakout session, but what I'd like to do instead is let's stay together because we're a little bit behind on time. Some folks joined us a bit late. So we're going to stay together and do this. And I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but this is such an important question for us. It's really our first major question for tonight. In our class on aesthetics, we looked at some pictures with like a Humvee and a golf cart and a McMansion and Jimmy Buffett's blue yacht with like 7 engines on it. And is that what a wealthy life is? You have to have a yacht to have a wealthy life. But I would be very interested in hearing about some of the things that symbolize a wealthy life to you. I'm going to give you some examples from my view of what a true wealthy life is, because I don't need Jimmy Buffett's yacht to feel like I have a wealthy, fulfilled life. So, and while I do that, I'd like to invite you to add in some of the ideas that really symbolize a wealthy life to you. So to me, one of the things that I began to think about, Joey says free time, was some of the ways that Epicurus defined it, the Greek philosopher. He said it was a combination of having peace of mind, having friendship and daily contact with your friends and your family. We might think about this as having kind of a village for ourselves, and having the freedom of self and community sufficiency. For him, there was a real feeling of freedom that came from having your basic needs met within a sort of community that you have for yourself, so that you're not economically dependent on them from someplace else. It allows us to be less stressed and to experience this peace of mind. And so these were the things that Epicurus found were the true source of wealth. I'm just going to read a few more here in the chat. Free time, living life in alignment with my core values. Yeah, boy, that's really important. And maybe it ties back to what Epicurus said as peace of mind. Because if we're destroying the planet to make our living, then do we ever really have this peace of mind? The ability to be adaptability and absorb shocks. So few stresses in life. Yeah, that gets back to that peace of mind. Abram was going to say having enough time to do at least some things that they want to do. So time seems like it's really important. So for me, I put together something here that we're going to call this something like, this is my version of sort of a quality of life statement. This is what a wealthy life means to me. Having peace of mind, a sense that life is workable. There are going to be problems in life, right? We're all going to have struggles. There's always going to be problems. But the sense that when the problems arise, it doesn't feel like the world is going to crash down on me. The sense that whatever happens, I can deal with this. I have family and friends and a nurturing environment, and the problems that come will be workable. Beautiful surroundings, real food, rich, natural human habitat. The next one on here says Dunbar's village life. When we get into this more into social permaculture in a few days, we'll talk about some research by a researcher named Dunbar, who said that humans evolved for life in a village. This is maybe that connection to daily people and to friends, and having that sort of sense of village around ourselves. That feels wealthy to me. Connection to nature and its seasonal cycles. This next one, Midday Movie, comes from an old Jeff Lawton film. Hi, I'm Jeff Lawton. Hi. And Jeff is interviewing some of his clients, and they're talking about how much work their garden, their permaculture garden is. And they say that they actually feel guilty because every day in the middle of the day they watch a midday movie because their lives have that much kind of free time and freedom to them. Now, I don't actually like movies that much, but what I want is that time to live and that time to feel free like that. Right livelihood, reflecting our values. That's really important to me. Freedom. And, in a lot of the financial independence, retire early, the FIRE community we'll talk about, there's a term called FU money. Which means that you never feel afraid to say, take this job and shove it. That feels really free. If you don't have to feel like, you're going to have, the world's going to crash down around you if you lose your job. Culture, music, art, theater, and care for the ability to care for and invest in my community, family, and friends in meaningful ways. Now, this is the complete view of my personal ideas of what a real wealthy life is. You know what? I didn't even put Jimmy Buffett's 7-engine yacht on there. What was I thinking? And just to read a few more from the chat here. I love the idea of Dunbar's village. So many of my closest friends live in other regions. Yeah, it's a real source of wealth is to have daily connection to people. A great tight-knit friend group in Seattle. Now none of us live there anymore. This is so common as part of our American story today, and the way the world is currently arranged. And so it's something that we can really think about. How do we design this sort of thing for ourselves? Because guess what? This is something that, as we all know, money can't really buy for us easily. Laura, to you.
Very good. So yes, we want to be thinking about, as Mike said, and Noah, that if we're looking at our money as our life energy, where are we directing this, and what are our objectives for where we're directing our money?
Oh yeah, having our money not harm other people.
Yeah. Yes. Anybody else? What else are you thinking about your objectives for your money?
Well,
Yes. Yeah,
Uplift.
Caitlin's chatted, uplift others and myself. One of mine is very much to keep my money, as much of my money as I can, in my local community. And I haven't gotten very far, but I've been bringing up the conversation of local investing, you know, with our Chamber of Commerce and our economic development officials here where I am in St. Petersburg, Florida, because that's very important for me. Yeah, these are all good ideas. People are chatting.
So it sounds to me like a big idea is just that we could almost think in two different ways. We don't want our money to be degenerative, and if better, we want our money to be regenerative or even societally transformative.
Yes. I think.
Well, it's a different way of thinking about it, isn't it, Laura? Because I think a lot of us take the assumption, as Noah was saying, that our money has to be or is necessarily going to be destructive.
Yes. Well, and that's what I get excited about, is getting people excited about recognizing the regenerative things we can do with our money. The more we are directing our money in regenerative ways and not directing it to billionaires or corporations or these other degenerative things, you know, we're taking back our power. We're getting money into places where it can be much more a part of the solution instead of perpetuating the problems. And I don't think people realize that they're, you know, it doesn't have, like, I was really glad to hear Noah's comment, you know, this awakening to it doesn't all have to be negative. It can be a very positive, powerful tool.
Yeah, as we get into the social permaculture stuff in a couple of classes, we'll actually talk about there being a whole history of groups of people, of marginalized communities who have lifted themselves out of poverty and into a more beneficial condition by thinking about some of the same exact tools that we're going to be talking about, especially the whole idea of the investment type strategies that we're going to be talking about. So historically, and Bill Malmstrom recognized this too, this has been a strong way that we have been able, that communities that have been marginalized have been able to find justice and create it for themselves by thinking like community organizers and building durable power, including their access to resources and real wealth.
Mm-hmm. So tagging on or building on what Mike was talking about with his vision of a wealthy life, one tool that can really help people hone in on this is a quality of life statement. And it's a tool you can create for yourself that is, you know, where you write down and collect how you want your life to be based on what you most value. And someone had put in the chat core values, and that's a big part of a quality of life statement. So just want to introduce this idea, whether it's Mike's vision board or a more structured and intentionally created quality of life statement. There are tools out there that can help you get more clarity on this, because it is a really helpful and important tool. And so those of you who are familiar with holistic management and Alan Savory's work, or holistic design, management design, there are conversations going on out there. Oops, it looks like we've lost our graphic. I'm not sure. All right, well, I'm going to keep talking. There we go. So Alan Savory's team at Holistic Management has done a bit of work around with quality of life statements when they're working with clients. And this is a sample of a quality of life statement. And I have put together some resources that will be online resources that will be shared with everyone at the completion of this course. And there will be links to articles with some more helpful examples of quality of life statements, but this is just an idea to get you going. So you can go to the next slide, Mike. Then recently, the quality of life statement was really driven home for me by reading this book, Redefining Rich, which I highly recommend to people. If anyone knows Shannon Hayes from her book, The Radical Homemaker, that's the same author here. And this is her newest book. It just came out last year. And she and her family, she has 2 younger children, they create their quality of life statement together. And it is a central part of, their decision making. And they, like I said, they create it together, and she goes into, it's not the focus of the book, but it's definitely something. She has more information in her approach to building a quality of life statement. She included it in the book. And you can go to the next one, Mike. So this is the type of stuff you think about including on a quality of life statement. Once you have it, it becomes your new North Star, and you can actually even think about reverse engineering your life from your quality of life statement. How do you get to that quality of life or that wealthy life that you want to? So these are the things you would think about. You think about including in your quality of life statement. And one of the things you'll receive from Mike and me at the conclusion of the course is a worksheet that you can use to create your own quality of life statement to help you guide you through the process. And
I'd just like to add to that how powerful this kind of process is, that you can't get. How are you going to get where you want to go if you don't even know where that is? You just have no idea. And that's what most of us are like in the society. We just kind of gravitate towards the same old idea that what society gives us and what society tells us to want, instead of really looking to what we really want, what really honors our own deepest vision and our deepest values. As Thoreau said, masses lead lives of quiet despair because they've never really thought about what really feeds their souls. They've just gravitated towards what society told them to want. And I can say, there's something, I think we have to be careful of the idea of, it's a big thing in New Age communities, that if you just create this thing and put it out there, then you'll achieve it. I mean, it doesn't exactly work like that. But I can say that multiple times in my life, when I have created a really clear vision of what I wanted, in a few years' time, I looked back and I was there. And because you don't even have to, in a real way, do it entirely consciously. But if you know what sorts of things you're looking for, this gets to be part of that in our thistle, the designing to be lucky, the L in thistle, that having a good idea of what you're looking for means that you notice those opportunities when they come up. So if having this village around you and having that kind of connection in your daily life is part of your wealth statement, you'll start noticing opportunities to build that for yourself, and it'll become something. So really investing in this idea is important. 2 kind of typical tools that are like mostly BS, but they kind of nick the tippy edge of truth with a stray bit of excess hot air, is how I'd like to put it. They're still pretty powerful. One of them is the vision board. And usually when people make vision boards, they cut out little pictures of things that they want in their lives. And what you're supposed to do is cut out like a picture of a yacht, Jimmy Buffett's yacht, and your yellow Hummer and your McMansion, and the beach in Tahiti with all the beautiful people around you while you sip a drink with an umbrella in it, and all that stuff. That's what you're supposed to put on your vision board. But we could remake that and make a regenerative vision board, a vision board that helps us seek happiness and wealth skillfully. And that's a really great exercise to do as something as an alternative for to a written quality of life statement. If that's something that, if you're not the kind of person who's going to sit down and write that quality of life statement, then this is another great way to do it. Another great thing to do is there's an article on transformativeadventures.org called the Caveman Bucket List. The bucket list is an interesting idea too, but people often put on that experiences that often are about jet setting around the world and collecting a bunch of money and all of that. What if we redefine it so that it is essential experiences for life, things that are truly peak experiences for a priceless life that are also regenerative? That's just another tool that we can use to get at this idea.
So just again, following on what Mike said, that we all approach these types of exercises differently. I will confess that I am not one for journaling or, doing a lot of the thoughtful writing exercises. The worksheet that we created for people has a first opportunity to just brain dump in the different categories that were on that visual: core values, social relationships. There's a second part if you are into, writing out a more whole, cohesive statement. There's space for that. For me, when I was making some major decisions in my life, I didn't even go as far as creating a vision board. I just knew in my mind 3 things. I didn't want to be in a conventional office job or a cubicle from 9 to 5 every day. I wanted to be outside more and physically active. And I wanted a bicycle to be a main form of transportation for me. And so, if you're not gonna, have the time or the inclination to do the full written statement, don't let that stop you. You can still just have some key guiding ideas around what is the quality of life or the wealthy life for you that you want. All right, the next permaculture principle, Mike's going to go into this. I really love this part of what he's going to cover. We think about observe and interact. Again, it's not just in our landscapes. We want to be looking at money and how it's flowing into, through, and out of our lives. And that is a key part of our relationship with our money.
Yeah, and another permaculture principle that we could just check in with again really quickly here is moving from designing from patterns to details. So a lot of what we're going to do is going to start with the big thinking and big ideas like your vision statement, and try to give you a vision for what transformative finance could really look like. And then we're really going to get into practical details, like deep into details. So we're going to get into the details, but we're designing from patterns to details. So a lot of what we're going to, I just always like to check in with that idea, because if I were watching this right now, I might be thinking, oh, all the philosophical stuff is fine, but how do I actually, what's the nitty gritty? We're going to get there too. So before we do that, if I were to ask you, how would you sketch your personal economy? A lot of it would happen like our discussions that we had earlier today. We might think about how much money is coming in to the conventional household economy, right? Maybe the bank account or something like that. I think of it as a stock. So the money flows into me, and then in systems theory, we could talk about these being stocks and flows. So starting to introduce this topic now, Laura, might help it be clearer earlier or later. So we often focus in on, the money comes in and then it goes to this thing that we call our stock, the household economy, the bank account. Maybe you stuff it under the mattress, I don't know. And then it goes out on the other side to pay our taxes, stuff that I bought from Walmart, mortgage, car payment, etc. Maintaining my assets like your car and your home and all that. And then investments in financial products that make rich people richer and don't really do much for me. That's kind of the basic conventional idea. And money in on one side, money out on the other. Stuff on the right side keeps getting bigger and more expensive. We all know that, right? This is the rule of life. The stuff on the right is always growing bigger and bigger. So if the stuff on the left doesn't go up too, then we're having a bad time of life. And that's what most of us think. So we focus on, how do we get the inputs up? How do we get the expenses down? And I like to point out, since we're going to be talking about building community wealth as well and really focusing in on that, we want to make sure that we're looking at or understanding that our communities often function the same way. So your city, wherever you live, your municipality tends to be set in the same exact way of thinking, and it's completely destructive to your city. You know, the city has inputs on one side, foundation grants, tax money, tourists maybe, and loans. Municipalities take out a lot of loans, by the way, and it goes into the city coffers, and then they use that to pay their loans, their financing, their federal and state taxes, purchase wants and needs from the outside corporations, maintenance costs and all that. And it's the same thing. If the outputs are greater than the inputs, the city is in decline. And this brings us to another really important thing. We're going to talk about something tonight we could call degenerative assets. So a lot of our money we spend on what we're going to call things like degenerative assets. Degenerative assets are things that exhibit entropy, meaning they lose energy and they lose function over time. This is another way we're continuously getting poorer by just kind of staying even. So nature makes systems that exhibit syntropy or negative entropy, that grow wealthy over time. But humans are stupid, so we make things that continuously break down if we don't put more money into them. For example, a house, right? If you don't continually do maintenance on the house degenerates and falls apart. You have other examples of degenerative assets? Anybody have a car? My God. Jimmy's got a car. So, you know, a lot of the things that we have are like this. And it's the same thing with our communities. What's in this picture? What's going on there? Someone knows the word. It's called spalling. And this happens as a reaction between steel and cement and concrete, and it causes the concrete to fall apart. And this is why the vast majority of our infrastructure in the United States is breaking down, infrastructure degradation. So we invest as cities in degenerative assets that are continuously breaking down too. That doesn't seem very smart to me. Now, if you look in this linear way at your finances, at the urban finances, it actually looks a lot like another system. It looks like agriculture, right? You have inputs on one side, they go into the field, you have your seeds, your fertilizer, all that, you put them in the field, and at the end of the season, you get the output, right? So it's a very linear way of thinking. It's like annual agriculture. But guess what? In this system, we're not the ones doing the farming. Instead, the ever-growing, insane, suicidal global corporate system is putting in just barely enough inputs into the city and extracting huge outputs from them so that the city is continuously getting less wealthy, and the ever-growing, insane, suicidal global corporate system is continuously getting wealthier. This is a bad recipe for our northern cities, and this is what's happening every place. Everything of value gets extracted from them. We call this the urban death spiral. And guess what? It looks pretty much the same as my bank account did, my personal finances did before all of these permaculture tools. Everything that I did all day long went to feed the insane, ever-growing, suicidal global corporate system. When I got up in the morning, the radio came on and there were advertisements for crap from this system. And then I would go to work to support this system. And when I came home, I would buy food from the system. When I used the toilet, I had to buy toilet paper from this system. And someday when I die, it's going to make this system richer too. Everything that I do, my whole life energy is being extracted to support a system that I know is destroying the planet and harming people. So there's got to be a way to extract ourselves from this kind of system. And it's important to realize that if we go back in time and look at the society and our systems before the insane, ever-growing global corporate system, we had connection. We got, for example, our meals. Our meals came from fertility that was created by an ecosystem, and our produce came from the ecosystem, and the produce was, and that was kind of recreation, and it was created livelihoods, and then that was taken and turned into value-added products by people in my village who were my friends, so it supported them, and that was recreation and fun, and that went to, and the waste that was created ended up cycled back into that system. It was a complete closed loop that got wealthier and wealthier over time, and was did not destroy the planet. This ecosystem got wealthier too. The whole thing that corporations do, they were essentially invented for this purpose. They break connections. So what they do is they get involved into the system and they break the connection between nature and our meals so that they can free that up and make a profit off of that connection. And it's become so complicated that everything, every single step of this creates work, and it creates waste, and it creates pollution, and it creates war, and it creates climate change, and it creates all of these other problems because of every single connection has been broken up in order to be turned into profit. Now we get our food from our meals, all the ingredients come from a store that generates profits, and it generates pollution and waste and requires exploited labor. And the meat from that comes from factory farming, which causes climate change. It causes pollution to the water. It causes more work, but it generates more corporate profits. And then the waste from that and the waste from our meals, these generate corporate profits, but they're also destructive and destroying the planet. The whole system is all about destroying connections and replacing them with fossil fuel energy, exploited labor, and pollution. This is why Joanna Macy, for example, has cited the most important thing we can do to be the work that reconnects. And this brings us back to our principle of transformative action, to invest in reconnection to nature and community. Because we need to go backwards from that to this, and we need to do it with all of our systems by investing in connection to nature and in connection to community. And there's a lot of opportunity for us to actually do this in real, meaningful ways that actually build our personal wealth and our community wealth. Or in the words of the great unofficial permaculturist Lizzo, she started her own label to keep the leaking sealed off, right? She didn't want to make another corporate label wealthy. She wanted to keep it in her own community. I'm just going to stop and give a few seconds here in case anyone has comments about that, about any of this. Well, if you do, feel free to ask. I'm going to keep going, and we'll come to an end here and give a little bit of room for discussion. I'd like to point out this article by Jared Diamond. There's also a great National Geographic article. This is the National Geographic article by Jared Diamond, who wrote Guns, Germs, Steel. And he's a great geographer and very great scholar. And he has pointed out that in addition to climate change, we have another huge problem coming up, which is that we in the West are consuming at rates that are just far too high. Resources, energy, everything. And it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable even for us to continue at the rate we are now, let alone other people in the world will want to have what we have if we keep it up. This creates a situation that puts us all at risk for war, for conflicts over resources, and for all of the problems associated with overconsumption. That's really the cause of climate change, of mass extinctions, of the food system collapsing. So we have to find ways to keep the leaking sealed off. We have to find ways to live wealthier feeling, more vibrant lives by reconnecting to nature and community without all of this corporate crap that's destroying the planet. As Bill Molson said again, it's one of the permaculture main strategies is to reduce our consumption of corporate crap and reinvest in local people and sun-powered things. So this brings us to a couple of our main strategies here that we're going to talk about more after our break. The key strategies we could call FIRE is financial independence, retire early. They're a set of tools that were originally designed to help people retire early, but it was also a great anti-consumption activism tool. It was kind of like, Vicki Robin, who created this thing, wanted to get people to consume less, and the potential of retiring early was the kind of the carrot to help get people to consume less. Now, that's probably not very attractive to a lot of us in the permaculture community. So I've changed it up a bit, and I focus on what I call free. I don't want to retire early. I don't even want to be financially independent. I want to be financially connected. What I want is to be financially resilient and economically or ethically empowered, right? That's what I want. I don't necessarily want to retire early. I just want to be free. So that is what we're going to talk about moving on into the next part of class. And just so you see where we're going here, this gets us to the idea of this 10% pledge. By the way, you can go to transformativeadventures.org and take this 10% pledge yourself. Pledge that you are going to try to reduce your own corporate consumption by just 10%. Then we can go back and try it again. But our first goal is just to get as many people as we can to try to reduce their support of the insane global corporate system by 10%. So as we do that, our corporate spending goes down, our support for the corporate supervillains is going down, the number of degenerative assets we have is going down, because that's all the corporations are selling us, our degenerative assets, and our freedom is going up. So this is going to be our first step, and we're going to talk about it after break. But before we take a break, we have a few minutes to see if anyone has questions or if Laura has any comments.
I would just reiterate at this point what Mike said about, we are starting from patterns to details. What we're really giving you, we're starting with those higher leverage points that Mike mentioned. And so we're really giving you this toolkit that is going to help you with your thinking long term into the future. And it just gets me really excited to share this with more people, to get more people thinking about this in this way.
Thank you. It really is an important thing. I was probably muted when I said that Stephanie says she really likes the reframe of reconnection to nature and community. And it really is powerful, because once we understand that our quality of life statement, our version of truly being wealthy, is about having a wealthy, beautiful, vibrant village for ourselves, then as we are divested from the corporate supervillain fund and reinvesting in connection to nature and community, not only are we investing in growing wealth for ourselves, we're directly investing in growing this other form, our real wealth, and we're investing in growing a better world at the same time. That's a powerful thing if we can position ourselves to invest in wealthier lives and a better world at the same time. Avon and Gavin, we had, nice. Congratulations, too. Congratulations. So yes, we're going to get into this overall strategy more as we go and break things down step by step about what this looks like. But we could call the overall strategy divesting from destruction and reinvesting in regeneration. So if there's one thing we can do as kind of a community, it might be to boycott and divest and stop spending money from the world's most destructive industries. And here are some. We'll talk about this after a break. And it looks like Noah has something to add too.
What I'm thinking is all of this stuff is tremendously important, that individually and at the personal and family level, we get our stuff together so that we have the ability to impact community actions towards scaling up permaculture. And I don't think in the permaculture movement we're spectacularly good at community action. And there's some amazing permaculture, large-scale permaculture going on around the world that I'm not sure a lot of people know about. There's, like, Neil Spackman has a project on the coast of Mexico to regenerate tens of thousands of acres of mangroves and seagrass beds and create an inland forest, and a multi-million-dollar project. And Andrew Millison documents very large-scale projects in India. And there's examples like in Portland, Oregon, of the Kailash Eco Village. And there's that old place, the Davis Eco Village. I don't know if I'm describing it well, but the property that Bill Mollison went to in his videos. But in America, we're trained to be individuals. In other parts of the world, they act as communities. I wish we could get to the stage where we start acting in permaculture in North America as a community.
Boy, so do I. And you know, when I said at the beginning of this class that these tools that we're going to be talking about tonight, are things that I have thought about every single day since I discovered them. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And when a lot of my local activism in Kalamazoo, which really connected me to a lot of people in a really in a way that really built village for me. It was very satisfying and truly a matter of investing in real wealth for me. A lot of it was focused on exactly this idea and understanding and communicating to people that our city was investing in destruction and investing in things that literally made our city poorer over time, and waking people up to the fact that we could be investing in ways that made us in our own city, in our own communities wealthy. And this whole framing was something that was very attractive to people. Obviously, it's a very attractive idea, and we don't even think about it because this system has just been sold to us and we've all bought it. So changing the system and changing the thinking will be huge. On that note, I want to say thanks to Zach for sharing a portion of this as kind of a little bit of a promotion of these ideas in the permaculture movement. Because yes, we do need to be thinking these ways, thinking about this stuff more. So thanks for joining us. If you joined through Zach, and thanks again, Zach. And we're going to take a break and come back afterwards. If you join us with Zach and you're interested in this kind of discussion, please join us at Transformative Adventures on Facebook and the Facebook group. It's a great group if you're into that. And we talk about this sort of stuff all the time. So let's take a break and come back at 7:40. Great. And we'll come back at 7:40 and dig in to more details. And Laura, if you want to stick around, or anybody wants to stick around and chat, feel free to. I'm going to go take a break.
Recording stopped.
There we go. That'll help to have the mic unmuted. There you have it. There's our sneak peek for the night on financial permaculture. Do you have anything that came up for you while you were watching that little bit there?
I didn't get enough information from when I walked in. Sorry.
That's fine. That's fine. There's a lot of great opportunities, though, to incorporate permaculture into whatever you do for a living, or if you're retired or independently wealthy or whatever you do to occupy your time. Plenty of great ways to incorporate permaculture principles and ideas. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about in terms of permaculture tonight, or should we just have that be it for tonight?
I think that's good.
All right. Well, I thank you all for joining me. Looks like we only have one person watching on Twitch, but I do appreciate your viewership. But usually I like to have at least a handful of people if we're going to raid into somebody. So instead, we'll just shout out a random channel that I like. Let's see who's doing good stuff. Any here that I should pick? Why don't you pick for us tonight? Which one we do? Just for a shout out, not even a raid.
Zero.
Shark 30.
Yeah.
All right. I always love shouting out Shark. Shark 30 does a lot of debate stuff, but if you're used to debate as blood sports, that's definitely not where that channel goes at all. He's got a lot more compassion and a true desire to understand other sides of issues. He's been a great bridge recently between the so-called feud between video essay leftist YouTube and debate leftist YouTube. So he was kind of intermediary in that whole drama, if you even want to call it that. It's kind of not really even that. But anyway, really great channel. I love the stuff he does. Even if I ever disagree with him, I know it's not because he doesn't truly believe the things that he's saying, and also has some good reasons for thinking the way he does. So yeah, I can't say enough good things about Shark 30. Go check him out. That'll do it for tonight then. On Wednesday, we're going to be picking up with Alexander Berkman's What is Communist Anarchism? Let me just go ahead and find out what the next chapter is going to be called, just to tickle your fancy a little bit. So the next one is, will anarchist communism work? A pretty good question. And we'll see how Berkman tackles that on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Amanda may or may not join, depending on how she feels after,
Life.
after life, yeah, on that day. So yeah, let's look forward to that. Otherwise, see you all later. You gonna say goodbye too, or are you just gonna like stare into your phone?
Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.